Alright, let's take a look at another example of selection structures. What I've put together in this example so far is a form. It is again a self-submitting form, so a form that will submit back to a copy of the same script. And what I have in the form itself is I have a shipping field, a field called shipping, that the user will be able to use to select what type of shipping they want for some imaginary product that they've ordered. When each one of these shipping values is submitted, I've put in individual values, 1, 2, 3, and 4, to represent each one of the 4 different options, so that we don't have to worry about actually checking for this text that the user is going to see, which is long and has the possibility of changing. Alright, so the way I want to do this is I am going to start off by coming up here to the top of the script. I'm going to put in a set of PHP tags, and in those PHP tags I'm going to create a new variable called cost. This is where I actually want to store the cost of each one of those shipping types and display it to the user in the end result. For right now though, since there may or may not be a cost, basically if it's the first time the user's visited this form, there won't be a cost, but if they've selected shipping and submitted, there would be. What I'm going to do is put a set of PHP tags down in the body where I'm going to put in an if statement. In this if statement, what I want to do is determine if there is a cost, and if there is, I want to show it to the user. The way I'm going to do that is in my if statement, I'm going to use the empty function to check to see if the cost variable is empty. The way I have it declared right now with the empty string, that should return true. And I don't want to display it if it is empty. I want to display it if it's not empty, so I'm going to put an exclamation point in front of that, meaning not. So then, if it's not empty, I'm going to say echo, say inside an h2 tag, the cost. If everything's working as it should right now, when I go back over to the page, I should see nothing as a result of that cost. Let me jump over to my browser. If I submit the form, sure enough, I don't see anything. So that appears to be working as it is at the moment. Let me also jump back up here to the head section now, and let's go with another if statement. In this if statement, what I want to do is I want to figure out if the shipping option from the user has been submitted. So I'm going to check for a shipping value in the post array, and if it's there, just to get us started, let's set shipping to $9.99. Jump back over to the browser, refresh, and sure enough, when the form's submitted, it's now showing $9.99. When I visit the script fresh, I'm actually getting an error saying I don't have anything called shipping. Where's that coming from? Line 5. Oh, I forgot to say if is set shipping. That's what I wanted to do. There we go. Now on a fresh visit to the page, I see nothing at all. If I actually submit the form, I see $9.99, so I think we're on track. Alright, for the next big step, what I want to do is I want to be able to differentiate between the 4 different types of shipping type 1, 2, 3, or 4, and display different costs to the user. There's a variety of different ways that we could potentially do this, and all of these decisions that are going to need to be made, I'm going to make inside the if statement I have that only goes off if shipping has been submitted, because I only want this to happen at all, this decision process to happen at all, if shipping's actually been submitted. So what if I started off with sort of the most straightforward basic way of handling this, and that would be just with a series of if statements. I could start off by saying if post shipping is equal to 1, so if the user selected type 1, then I could say set the cost equal to, let's say type 1 is $1.50. There we go. I could then say else, meaning the type wasn't 1. Then what I'd actually want to do at that point is make another decision. If at this point I know that the shipping type wasn't 1, then I could maybe check to see if post shipping is equal to 2. If it's equal to 2, we could say the cost is equal to, I don't know, let's say $5. If it's not 2, then another else. I could make another decision and say, well, okay, if it's not 1 and it's not 2, let's check to see if post shipping is 3. There we are. If it's type 3, let's set the cost to $1,000. And then finally, I could say else if post shipping is equal to 4, my 4th type of shipping, then let's set the cost equal to $1 million. That's what you pay for instantaneous shipping nowadays. I'm also then going to throw a last else on here at the end, and what I'm going to do there is I'm going to set cost equal to unknown, let's say. That's going to kind of act as my default. The way things are set up right now, where I have this select structure where 4 different options are available for the user to submit, it should at a basic level be impossible for the user to submit anything but 1, 2, 3, or 4. But that's really only at a basic level. What if I were to come back and make a change to this select in the future in the HTML, but forget to change the PHP code that goes along with it? I could potentially end up with a value other than 1, 2, 3, or 4. Or what if somebody were to create their own form with whatever type of control on it they wanted, and they set their form to submit to my page that figures out shipping costs? I'm in no way under control, in control of their form, so they could have it submit any value at once. So not only do I want to cover the known values that I expect to get, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I also want to cover the possibility of anything else potentially being submitted. All right, so with it set up the way it is right now, let's take a look and see how it works. If I come back over to my browser, refresh, if I pick type 1, $1.50, obviously needs to be formatted, but that's the idea. If I choose type 2, $5. If I choose type 3, $1,000. And if I choose type 4, instantaneous shipping, it's $1 million. So it looks like from what I have right now, everything is working just fine. So very good. The only complaint I would have at this point is this horrible if structure. Not horrible, I don't suppose. I've seen worse, but all of these curly braces, especially the big batch of them all stuck here to the end, all of the open and closes that fall throughout the if-elses, right? An if-else inside an if-else, if inside an if-else, all of it could definitely very easily lead to syntax problems that could potentially be a little tricky to track down because there are so many special symbols crammed into such a small space there. Is there anything I could do to clean all of this up? Well, there is a variety of different things. One thing I could potentially do that might make this at least appear a little simpler would be to stop myself from having to constantly access the shipping value from the post array. I could do that this way. There. All I've actually done here is I've taken the value from the shipping index of the post array, and I've just put it into a regular old variable called shipping, so that then in each one of these separate if statements I can just refer to the shipping variable itself instead of having to refer to the shipping index of the post array. That simplifies things a little bit more. If we take a look at it, let's see if that still works. Type 1, type 2, type 4. Yeah, it looks like everything's still basically working. So that did clean up this structure here a little bit, but it hasn't done much to get me out of the nastiness of all of these different curly braces that I have going on. Is there anything that I could potentially do about that? Yeah, there actually is. One of the things I could do to help clean that up is that PHP does have a variation on the if-else syntax that actually allows you to combine if and else statements together. Essentially what I could do is I could take, for example, an else that has an if inside of it, and I could take that else and if and turn them roughly into about the same statement, kind of like that. So I could take this next if and else, go something like that, and then go on and do the same thing with the rest of them. There we are. You can see that this particular version of the if-else syntax has a couple advantages. By combining those ifs and elses together, we've effectively kept the exact same logic we had before, where we're checking a condition if, and then if that condition isn't true, else, we check another condition, another if. But by putting it into this particular syntax where we actually use the keyword ElseIf with no space in between them, this is its own individual word. It's not actually a combination of an else and an if. What it's done is it's basically kept me from having to indent as much as I was doing before. It's kind of kept everything more lined up all on one level. It's also kept me from having to have all of those extra closing curly braces at the end. In this case, what happens is each else if starts with a curly brace and then ends with a curly brace. I can have just a regular old plain else at the end with a single curly brace, and I don't have to have 5 or 6 closing curly braces at the end like I did before. So that certainly helps clean things up. If I jump back over to my browser now, take a look at the page fresh, type 1, type 3, type 4, It works exactly the same way it did before, works exactly the same way as when I had just sort of regular if-else's embedded, nested inside one another. It's just cleaned up the code quite a bit, so that sometimes can be quite a benefit. Another way that we could actually also clean this up quite a bit would be by not using if-else statements at all. In this particular type of situation, this sort of logic where if it's this, do this, if it's something else, do something else, if it's a third thing, do this third thing, that particular type of logic could also be accomplished using a completely different control structure called a switch statement. A switch statement starts off with the keyword switch, followed by a set of parentheses and then a set of curly braces for the switch body. What's a little bit different right off the bat about a switch is inside the parentheses, instead of having a Boolean expression, a true or false, like we would have with an if statement, instead what we do there is we put the value that we're testing. So in this case, we would say the value that I'm looking at is the value of shipping. What I can then do with the case statement is I can provide, or I'm sorry, the switch statement is that I can provide a series of what are called cases. I can say, in case of 1, do this, in case of 2, something else, case of 3, case of 4, and in each one of these situations, what I'm doing is I'm saying if shipping is 1, if shipping is 2, if shipping is 3, if shipping is 4. So again, it's the same rough logic that we had down here with the if-else and the if-ElseIf type structures, except here I can do it and it's going to be written in a way that ought to be a little bit more concise and easy to read. So I can say in the case of 1, set cost equal to $1.50 and then break. The break keyword is one that we'll talk about a little bit more later, but effectively what it does in this case is it simply means this is the end of that section. So in the case of shipping being 1, perform this action. There could be other actions in there as well, and then stop performing actions at this point. Without the break, what would happen is it would flow down and it would also perform the actions of the next switch, or the next case. So let's see, for the next one, cost would be $5, and then break. For number 3, cost would be $1,000, and then break. And then finally for the last one, $1 million, and then break. One last thing I can do here with the switch is I can put in a default statement. The default statement is effectively the same as that last trailing else that I had down there before. It's what happens if nothing else matches. So this is where I could say cost equals unknown. If I then take out the if statement that I had in here before, so I'm just left with my original if statement that checks to see if a shipping value has been submitted at all, and then I've got the switch case statement in there instead of the if else. Let's see how that works. Not very well at all. Line 61. 61, wow, way down here at the end. Very often in PHP, if you get an error like that, saying that you have some kind of error on the very last line of your script, it's almost certainly a curly brace that you've lost somewhere. Let's glance through here and see if I can find it. Yep, I already see it. I've got an opening curly brace here for this if, but somewhere when I was cleaning up everything else, I lost the closing curly brace that goes with it. I should probably put a comment on that one so I don't lose it again in the future. I'll say this is the closing curly brace to end. Is there a shipping value? Let me give that another try. There, my form is back. All right, so on an initial visit to the form, everything seems okay. Type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. There we are. So, essentially what we have here then is we have the regular if and if-else statements that we talked about previously. We also now see that there are some alternate ways of putting together if and if-else statements using the ElseIf keyword, right, which can sometimes come in handy. And in certain situations we can even do away with if and else altogether and potentially use something like a switch statement. There's nothing really magical about the ElseIf or the switch. They are both just performing a job that can be done purely with if and else statements. But typically the reason we might want to consider using ElseIf or switch is simply so that we can clean up what would otherwise be messy, potentially bug-ridden syntax.